would like to begin our April speaker series by welcoming Dr. Ying Chu. Dr. Chu is the Director of Chinese and Dual Language Learning at the International School of Beijing. And Ying, I'm sorry that I don't have your bio here on the slides. I know you shared it with us. We are really fortunate to have Dr. Chu join us today. And so I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then we will jump over to your slides for your presentation.
All right, sure. Good morning and good evening, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, MRC, for this opportunity for me to share about my work. I'm Dr. Ying Chu, and my day role is the Director of Chinese Dual Language and added one more, and Global Learning at the International School of Beijing. Right here, we have dual language program from EY3 to grade 5, and we have a Chinese program where 1,500 students taking Chinese. And we have a global learning program where we host Chinese language and culture immersive learning programs for students in the US and around the world to come to China. So professionally, I see myself as a research practitioner. That means I apply research to practice. And when there is no research available, I conduct my own research and engage teachers in conducting our own action research to solve our unique problems in our setting. So I'm really appreciative to have this experience to share our work with you.
Thank you, Ying. And I will, because again, I'm juggling slides here. Let you know that uh, Ying, Dr. Chu, is again, she's the Director of Chinese Dual Language Learning at International School of Beijing. Her work centers on building sustainable, asset-based multilingual ecosystems by aligning language policy, instructional design, leadership practice, and evaluation. And as Dr. Chu mentioned, she's a seasoned research practitioner and educational leader, and she specializes in culturally and linguistically responsive practices and system level improvement. She holds an MA from Teachers College, Columbia University, and an EdD in educational leadership from the University of Southern California, and brings over a decade of experience bringing research, practice, and leadership to support equitable learning for multilingual learners in international school contexts. So we are really lucky to have Dr. Chu share her research with us today. I'm going to go ahead and share your slides.
Thank you.
And here we are.
Perfect. Great. Thank you, John, and thank you, everyone. I'm located in Beijing, so this is 10:07 p.m. here. All right, but I'm so excited to have this opportunity to share my research with you, and most importantly, share the work that we have been doing at international schools in not just in Beijing but in Asia for the last 5 or 10 years. Okay, so I would like to begin with a framing observation. In international school contexts, the challenge is no longer establishing whether dual language education is effective. The question is well supported in the literature already. The actual challenge is understanding how dual language programs are implemented and sustained within these complex, multilingual, and highly mobile school environments. We know that 73% of the innovation actually fail Why? Because it's due to the lack of clarity in goals of design rather than due to the breakdown, rather than not knowing why programs like that are beneficial. So that's why my research is focused on how do we implementing programs like that in international school settings. And this is connected, deeply connected with my own identities. So here I picked the three dimensions of my core identities that are true to me. And also those identities I have engaged with, well, personally, academically, and professionally in this research and in this work. So the first picture you see in this slide is my family. So my first identities, I see myself as a parent of two multilingual children. So those are my children. They are next year they're going to high school and middle school. So it's terrifying to know that I will be a high school parent and middle school parent. And it's also important to note that they are part of the dual language education. So they're fortunate enough to have participated in dual language program at the schools that I was working before and at the school that I'm working now. And my second part of the identity, and I engage this work, is I am a research practitioner that I have shared when I introduce myself. So this particular research is served as my dissertation research back then. And my last part of the identity is I am an educational leader. So that's my day job, right? And the graph I show are three core goals of dual language education. And those happen to be my educational leadership educational goals, which are really reimagine and redesign international education so students can truly achieve high academic achievements and to be bilingual, biliterate, and socioculturally competent. So those are the identities and those are my positionalities when I engage with this work personally, academically, and again, professionally. Okay. Next slide. All right, so here is my research. This is a citation that if you're interested to read more, you can look for my research. We know that international education has expanded significantly over the last decade. So now international schools is a huge market that's serving over 5.8 million students globally. And 60% of those schools are in Asia. And this expansion has accompanied by the increasing demand for multilingual and multicultural education. At the same time, the dual language education has a robust evidence base that demonstrating positive outcomes in bilingualism, biliteracy, academic achievement, and sociocultural competence, the three pillars I just showed you. However, in international school contexts, particularly Chinese English programs, implementation has largely been driven by trial and error rather than research-informed frameworks. So this creates a persistent gap between what is known and what is enacted. This study that I engaged with is really trying to address three specific gaps in the literature. So number one is the majority of the dual language research is situated within US public school systems, which differ significantly from international school contexts in governance, demographics, and mobility. And the second knowledge gap is most research focuses on dual language program. The partner language is a phonological language such as Spanish, French, but Chinese presents distinct linguistic and pedagogical considerations, which is largely different than those phonological language. And the third gap, and most critically, is the literature rarely examines the implementation as a process, the specific step and strategies, but mostly about the determinants of high quality dual language education. What are the high quality what are the high quality dual language education is like. So as a result, implementation is often approached as a technical task rather than a systemic and adaptive process. All right, now let's look at my research questions then. So those two are my main research questions, as you can see. The first one is really trying to figure out how program leaders describe the process of implementing dual language program, specifically Chinese English dual language program in international school context. What are the specific steps and the strategies, the how? And the second research question is trying to figure out what program leaders consider as promising practices in implementing those programs in an international school context. Okay. Okay, so here is the literature review. So the literature review part are mostly on those four main areas. So the first area is literature on dual language. We know dual language is very beneficial academically, cognitively, even physiologically. It's good for your mental health as well, right? And we also know that what are the key programmatic features of highly successful, high quality dual language? There is limited research on Chinese English dual language program, but there is some. And overall, there is a major critiques dual language program. The critiques is about the increase and growing popularity of dual language, especially in the US, has been due to the acceptability of bilingual program, inclusive of native English speakers, and who are typically white, middle class families. So this phenomenon could be explained through what we call interest convergence, which means the kind of social policies that benefits the minority population only change and sustain when they also benefit the dominant population. The next part of the literature review is on international education. As I have shared briefly, there is a rapid growth of international schools and students in international education. So by 2022, there are over 12,000 international schools in the world. Half of them, more than half of them, are here in the Asia Pacific region. And international schools, especially the IB program, there is 518% increase in the last two decades, especially in the Asia Pacific region. There is a critique of international school and international education is they might have served as gatekeepers of Western universities and multinational corporations. And they also might have been designed in a way to improve the life trajectory of the rich and wealthy. So instead of being a vessel for real global citizenship education, it might be simply an extension of elitist social reproduction and a new and growing globalized class. The third part of the literature review is about leadership in dual language. So overall, there is no lack of leadership research dual language programs. So but again, those are mainly focused on what are the qualities of highly effective language leaders, such as visionary, advocate, steward, and facilitator. But however, the program leaders are not really well prepared to lead programs, especially in international school settings where they have a really established English medium in education, but trying to insert and start a program like that as a strand of the programs that they offer. So research indicates that school leaders, especially international school leaders, are not prepared for that. And the last part, and I think quite interesting, is implementation science. So implementation science is is showing like what are, if we can go to the next slides. So I will briefly show you what are some common theoretical approach when we are talking about implementation science. So there are mainly three theoretical approach when we research implementation. So the first is describing and or guiding the process of translating the research into practice. It's called the process model. And another one, most of the research is about understanding or explaining what influences implementation outcomes. So most of the research are on the determinants framework. So what are the determinants of high quality implementation rather on the actual steps and the strategies and the process. And there's another common one is evaluating implementation. So come up with the evaluation framework that can support implementation. So specifically for this area, I have chosen the theoretical approach as the process model because there is a research gap in that, and leaders are not equipped with those systematic adaptive steps and strategies to implementing programs in large and complex international schools. Okay, now let's look at my conceptual framework. Here, of course, this is not the preliminary conceptual framework. This is a revised conceptual framework after the research. So let's focus on the outside, the four boxes. So those are the implementation phases. There is implementation phase 1, initial consideration on the upper left corner. And the next you will see implementation phase 2, which is creating an organized structure. Then implementation phase 3, ongoing structure, and implementation phase 4, continuous improvement. So this is more on the implementation side. And my conceptual framework has two main framework. The first one is what we call the quality implementation framework. That is from a meta-analysis of 25 implementation framework, which focus on the process of implementation. Okay, and in the middle, you see that donut chart, which has 4 parts, are the leadership competence to lead dual language programs in international schools, specifically advocacy, facilitation, stewardship, and visioning. So those are the leadership competency, which in detail has 4 points to elaborate the knowledge, the skills and dispositions that leaders need to possess in order to fulfill the leadership needs of the program. For what? For achieving the core goals of dual language education, which is in the center. Those are the 3 pillars of dual language education, which are bilingualism and biliteracy, academic achievement, and cultural competence. And you can see the relationship of those concepts is when we know exactly what to do as leaders in terms of the roles and responsibilities and actions to take. And we take those actions in a step-by-step with those strategies outlined outside with those 4 phases, we will be able to achieve the core goals, which is the purpose of dual language education in the middle. And as you can also see, those 4 phases are not separated, that they're a cyclical process. So you can start from the phase 1, but you can also start from phase 2 and continue with the circle and then keep improving and starting from the phase 1 again. All right, now I will go to the next part. Which is the research design and the rationale. So this study employs a qualitative constructive design and giving those 2 research questions, right? Focusing on how leaders describe the implementation process and the promising practices. So a qualitative approach was appropriate to capture their meaning making and the contextual nuances and also the cross-site patterns. And participants included program leaders across 8 international schools. 6 of them are in Asia and 2 of them are in the US, mostly the west coast of the US. So they are selected based on their program maturity, alignment to the dual language program, and how comparable they are to the peer international schools in Asia. And the data collection include mainly semi-structured interviews, but accompanied with document analysis. So this will allow for triangulation across data sources. Okay. All right, now let's look at data analysis. First is the document analysis. So the documents analyzed are mainly from their websites, official social media platforms, and shared documents by the program leaders who participated in the interview. So those are mainly about their implementation, such as their implementation plan, if they have one, and also student outcome data, if they're willing to share. But I didn't really press those leaders very firmly in terms of sharing certain documents, because some of the documents are confidential, and also the leaders have already engaged and committed to about 90 minutes of the interview. So I was really appreciative of their participation. So the document analysis also used to select sample schools, and there are some criteria I put into place in terms of what are the school we consider as the peer school. And one important information I want to share here is when we say comparable peer international school, we're saying about the same size and also about have the same kind of reputation, because we don't really have official ranking of where the school is. So some of the criteria we put into use is look at the school's student versus teacher ratio, and higher education admission rate, and also another would be their teachers who possess high level of high degrees. So a few criteria like that, because there is no official ranking who are the reputable international school. And document analysis also used to examine implementation process, because some of them also shared about their implementation plan or meeting minutes. And for interviews, I conducted those semi-structured interviews with my interview protocol and identify common themes. So leaders are engaged with me minimum 60 minutes, but most of them about 90 minutes of the interview. And I recorded those interviews with password protected recorders, and used a transcribing tool Otter.ai and a coding tool Atlas.ti. But at that time, it was 4 years ago, so it was not as advanced as the AI tool that we have now. I want to briefly show you my coding process for the next slide. So it's both an inductive and deductive process in terms of the codes. I have about 80 open codes, and at that time the Atlas AI was able to help me to rank those codes in terms of frequency and color coded those codes. And I further organized those 80 open codes into 20 code groups. So some of the groups, such as implementation phase 1, 2, 3, 4, or promising practices such as Chinese dual language program, biliteracy development, high quality program features. So those are 20 code groups. Then further organize them into 8 themes. And from that 8 themes, put them into 2 overarching themes. Now I would like to show you those 2 overarching themes as my main findings. So this is the first one, the overarching theme is about implementation process. So it seems that the dual language bilingual program implementation is a systematic process that requires extensive planning and structuring and organized step-by-step procedures to realize the core goals of dual language education. So specifically, those are the four phases: initial consideration to create ecological fit, implementation team and plan, and needs to be ongoing support structure and continuous improvement. So that answers research question 1 about implementation process. And the next overarching theme is about leadership competencies. So the findings is the linguistically and culturally responsive leadership was key to program success in realizing the core goals of dual language education. Specifically, those competencies are visioning, advocacy, facilitation, and stewardship. So next, I want to show you briefly on the implementation process and the 4 competency. Then I'll be able to take some questions. Okay, so this is the implementation process. You have seen the conceptual framework before. So here is just showing those 4 areas and as stages process, but it's a cyclical process. And I want to draw your attention to the middle, the frame, the design. You might have noticed that is not a typical frame. It's a kind of a Chinese Oriental style of frame, and I specifically picked this style for a reason. So this is a kind of Chinese window frame in the ancient times. That right, the symbolic meaning is this window frame is balanced the yin and yang, and when in Chinese architecture, when you have this kind of window frame that you put windows in your house to inviting the outside scenery into an integral part of your inside of your house. So this is also symbolically showing that when we are learning, not just in English in international school, but learning in Chinese language and culture, learning about, and learning through Chinese language and culture, we're inviting different perspective and different epistemology and different values and beliefs into the inside of the house and creating that synergy to balance the yin and yang so we can be harmonious. So that is a special design that I'm particularly proud of. Okay, so let's look at the specific steps then. Step 1 is initial consideration of the host setting. So to assess and create ecological fit, so we can ensure implementation readiness. Of course, there are multiple steps and strategies. A few things that I want to highlight is there needs to be minimally having some self-assessment strategies, such as the needs assessment, the fit assessment, and the readiness assessment, and program model adaptation. So the implementation science is different than what we typically call change management. It is about the program fidelity, but with adaptation as well. It is about implementing a research-based innovation and with some kind of a consideration to adaptation rather than change management, because change management is about starting something new or different ways of working. Doesn't matter it's research-based or not. So there is the answer is there is no perfect model. It's all about making that fit into your specific context to create that ecological fit. Another one would be the capacity building strategies to ensure not only you have buy-in from critical stakeholders, but you have built capacity and build teachers, admins, support system to support such program. So the next phase 2, is about creating organizational structures to oversee the process so we can set up strong foundation for systemic implementation. And the minimum requirement is come up with an implementation plan and implementation team. An implementation team with knowledge and skills, implementation a dual language program in the existing monolingual English medium international school is a very complex and dynamic process. So as a strand program, and that has an additional layer of complexity, and different people with different perspectives and different expertise will be needed to perform the responsibilities for implementation. And of course, we need an implementation plan with specific task, right, and timeline to enhance accountability. So program leaders don't always have to say we're building the airplane as we are flying now, which is dangerous. So they can proactively address the challenge rather than taking a trial and error approach. Next, the third phase is the ongoing structure. So it's about monitoring the progress because it's a long progress. And a typical school, it's 8 to 10 years to fully implementing the dual language program, even only just in the elementary school, right? So it's about monitoring the progress, providing feedback, and making adjustments to ensure innovation is being integrated effectively. So those are minimum requirements. Is we need adequate leadership support and a process evaluation system, as well as an effective feedback system. So adequate leadership support, that means we need to adequate coaching, supervision to instructional staff. Support the structure are even more critical in international school. Why? Because we have a 70% of the faculty turnover every year. The turnover rate is really high in international school, and we need to onboard new faculty and develop well documented systematic process and approach to ensure the sustainability of the dual language program. Then the process evaluation system needs to assess the strengths and the limitations of the key areas such as the curriculum assessment, of course, and the enrollment and teachers' individual performance, etc. All right, then the last implementation phase, which is the most exciting one, I believe, is to improve future application. So make evidence-based decisions in program implementation. So we can ensure the sustainability of the program and continuous improvement. Some of the steps and strategies are learning from your experiences and learning from others in this area, and maybe conduct a program evaluation as well. And last year in my school, we have conducted a program evaluation of our dual language and EAL program and collaborated with MRC. And so thank you for that. And the next part is about leadership competency, which are the 4 competencies and with this Chinese window frame, right? So again, as I have shared, this traditional window frame is really trying to show linguistically and culturally responsive leadership in leading Chinese English dual language program is critical, especially in international schools. And we're trying to create the understanding of different cultures by inviting different cultures, perspectives, and values and beliefs. So this window frame is inviting, balanced, and harmonious. And those 4 competencies are advocacy, facilitation, stewardship, and visioning. So just a little bit about the visioning. Next slide. There are 4 main areas, but one area I really want to highlight is really set and communicate a vision that lays the necessary ideological foundations to redesign schooling for a transformed future in international schools. Because international school is a legacy of colonialism and the value Eurocentric and American-centric, and English is a language of power. So we do need linguistically and culturally responsive leaders to have that vision that learning in two languages is supporting students, not just their academic learning, but their identity forming, and supporting them as a way to liberate their thinkings and values and beliefs and the ways of learning, thinking, and being. So that's one important one I want to emphasize. So the next one in competency is advocacy. Advocacy means, thank you. Advocate equitable access, outcome, needs, priorities. And one thing I really want to highlight is not only advocating for students and families, but also advocating for teachers, especially the teachers in the program who teach the language other than English. Again, in the monolingual English medium international school, and there are multiple schools in the international world. They are even not paying their local teachers or teachers who teach Chinese equal pay. So I know it's hard to believe that when teachers are doing the same job, but putting on different pay scale. So that is also one important part of advocating. Advocating not just for families and students, but advocating for teachers in the program as well. The third part is competency is about facilitation. So facilitation, those are the four main areas. Facilitate recruit and retain competent staff are especially important because the kind of skills and knowledge and dispositions that you need to teach a dual language program in international schools, teachers are hard to find. So instead of looking for some hard skills, looking for the softer skills, looking for the people who have the right mindset and who have the right disposition, and taking them and provide them with the kind of adult learning and development programs, the job embedded professional learning, so they can be successful. And that's an important one. And the last one is what we call stewardship or championship. So those are the main four areas. Again, I want to highlight one particular part, which is disruptive systemic oppression. International school as an elitist system, and the purpose and the value sometimes is questionable. So what is the true value of global citizenship education? And sometimes international schools can be operating in a way and as gatekeepers and creating this new globalized elitist class, right? So it's operating in a linguistically and culturally oppressive ways by centering on English language and Western culture and ideologies. So one way, when we have culturally and linguistically responsive leadership, is to disrupt that systemic oppression and giving students the access, not just equitable access, but outcomes to truly bilingual, biliterate, and gain their bilingual identity and feeling confident of their bilingual identity, and to be truly culturally competent and truly global citizen. And so some implication for practice, and those are just a few, that you really need dedicated program leaders to lead the programs, because oftentimes we just assign this to the assistant principal or to the principal, but oftentimes they don't have that specific knowledge and skills, and they are just growing on that disposition. Minimally, we need a dedicated implementation team and implementation plan, and there is ongoing support structure needed and ongoing monitoring systems, and always see it as a circle of continuous cyclical process, and value that continuous improvement. Of course, this research is not perfect at all. There are many limitations that I want to mention. The first of all is the perspectives came mainly from the program leaders rather than the stakeholder groups. And the sample size is intentionally small and context specific limiting the transferability. And the schools were international schools with organizational and certain linguistic profiles. And myself, as a research practitioner in the field, my interpretation was shaped by my positionality, specifically by those three parts of my identities. But I have diligently tried to through reflexive analytic steps were used. So delimitations, this is really focused specifically on Chinese English dual language program and implementation in international school context, examining the leader's perspective rather than or stakeholder perspectives and student outcomes. So lastly, this research didn't stop there. It has been put into use in some of the sample schools that they have agreed to share their schools. At Stanford American International School, that they have really engaged with my, they are not part of my research, but they have used my research to guide their practice, especially in continuous improvement. And they have made a commitment to have a dedicated role to lead the program rather than assign that to their principal. So they have hired a bilingual, biliterate assistant principal to lead this work and assigned specific program leaders to lead this work. And they have revised their curriculum to teach Chinese linguistically responsive way rather than translating everything from English to Chinese. And they have dedicated to rather than keep changing program models, but stick with their program model, but focusing on high quality teaching and learning quality. And International School of Beijing, again, the elementary school principal, the director of learning, we take approach as in terms of improve the program, we got to improve ourselves. So as aspiring to be in culturally responsive leaders, much of the work is on leadership development. And those are specific actions that they have taken to develop themselves as leaders. As a result, the program has improved significantly. Okay. I think I will end there. I have a lot more to say, but time is up, so I'll end there.
Thank you, Dr. Chu,
Thank
for
you.
sharing your research. We do have some time now, and I know you have more to share about your study. And then there are, I imagine, a lot of questions that some of the participants who have joined us have. So we'll take a moment. If you would like to ask your question in the chat, please feel free to drop a question in the chat. Or if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask the question out loud, then feel free to do that. We'll start with the first question in the chat here, asked about what linguistic diversity do the leaders, teachers, or students in these programs already have? And how does this cultural and linguistic diversity get leveraged in the multilingual instruction?
Great. Thank you so much for this question. And each school is different. Each school is vastly different, right? So for those schools that I have researched, there is one school where 90% of the students are native English speakers. So sometimes you have to question in a very diverse international school why a program is mainly serving English native speakers. So there is one extreme. Almost 90% of the students are English speakers. And in other schools, particularly school, about 80 to 90% of the students are Chinese speakers or bilingual speakers. And there are some in between. So there is significant diversity that already exists in the student body. And in terms of leaders, mainly, as you might know, that in international schools, most of the leadership roles and the leadership people who hold leadership roles do not represent the diversity of the student population. But that is where we aspire to be, where they we want to be. So students have people they can look up to rather than leaders or look the same, speak the same. So there is limited leadership diversity in terms of international schools. Teachers would be half of them are Chinese speakers and half of them are English speakers. So teachers are most diverse and balanced in a way. Yeah, that we can be sure. And in terms of how we leverage that diversity in cultural, multilingual cultural education. Great question. Thank you so much for that. So first of all, by having the teachers from two different worlds, they already showing the students that we call them that a window, a mirror, a sliding door experience, right? So some of the teachers who look like you, who speak like you, who have the same similar background, and another teacher would come from a completely different background, who speak a different language, who behave or talk and have a different value system. So having that access is very valuable for students within the student body as well. They both serve as the language learners and language models, so they can learn from each other. So we can leverage that as well. And in terms of the curriculum design, even just learning about the same standards, but from different authentic materials in different languages and from different perspectives is very valuable. So that's why having that program, having the students, having the teachers, we really can leverage that the diversity of the culture that already existing in the student, teachers, and the program. And thank you for that question.
We have another question. Thank you, Benjamin, in the chat. Um, do you see likely a future where languages other than English or Chinese will be taught in international schools, especially in the Chinese context?
I think so, and I hope so, because I mean, in the Chinese context, if international schools in China, I mean, that's the host country. We're trying to honor the host country and learn the host country culture, so that makes all the sense. But if we have a critical mass, say we have a 30% of the population are Korean speaking population or 20% of population Arabic speaking population, I do see the need and the possibility of offering that kind of dual language program as well. Because I mean, research again and again has helped us and to believe and to approve that these kind of programs are most effective, not just learning English, but learning their own language and culture and increase their intercultural competence as well. And especially for language learners, dual language program is the most effective way to learn English. And today I didn't have a chance to show that all the research showing that it's actually a myth that more English is better English. It's not true. When students can learn the language in their home, the content in their home language, or even if it's not their home language, but engage the content in two different languages, it really increases their cognitive ability, their learning agility to apply what they have learned in a new context. So my hope and one of my leadership purpose is also to does not matter where I work and what I do, but supporting those programs and providing those access to students and families. Hopefully you're part of that too. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. And again, we have time for a few more questions. I see a couple in the chat, or if you'd prefer to unmute yourself, then you can ask a question. Madeline, thank you for your question. Wonder if you've come across any attention to learning home languages outside the original home culture. And so, Madeline, do you want to say a little bit more about that? Do you have a
Yeah, thank
specific
you. Thank
context?
you so much.
Yeah.
Hi, Madeline.
Hi. It's been so
Happy to
interesting, and I
see you.
apologize that I was off screen, but I'm taking care of
Sorry.
my little brand new grandbaby.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Yeah. So I just think that in many international schools, students are learning their home language, their mother tongue, but they're
Mm.
not in their home country, right? So they're learning it, from their parents or from whoever else is around them. And so I'm just really curious about the impact that has on language development when they're not necessarily surrounded by other speakers of that particular language.
So you're saying that they have a limited access to the authentic language environment where they're learning that language, but outside of their
Right.
home culture. But I would say it's better than not learning that language at all. So providing that opportunity is paramount, I think, and
Yeah.
also well, they cannot be in their home culture, original home culture, but if they have some more access to the, I'll give you an example. Like last week, I was in New York City, and we are recruiting for our new global learning program, and I was at the school, Trinity School. So they are giving a talk to the eighth graders because they're going to ninth grade, and all of a sudden they have the option to take Chinese. So they are learning Chinese in a context and culture outside of their home culture, right? So that's in that context. And one of the ninth graders shared with the eighth graders that although with limited time learning Chinese in school outside of their home culture, that has been significant for him because he has three reasons. First of all, it really helped to strengthen his Chinese identity, and it really helped him to connect with his parents and grandparents at a deeper level that just the learning that at home or elsewhere wouldn't provide. And another part is it's really helped him to really build that identity of a Chinese speaking person in the US, but being able to find peace with that, being able to trying to understand more and have decided to come to China for a overseas global learning study program to learn more. So even you're learning that without the original home culture, it can still be helpful for that person.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's really important. And I think what I'm curious about really in the long run is as schools continue to do this, the attention not just to language competence in terms of, the language itself, but also the cultural context and cultural awareness
Mhm.
around what it means to speak another language and what, how you have access, but how there's also it's just such a big topic, I think, socially, culturally, all of those kinds of the sort of things that make a difference when communicating with a global, population.
Exactly. And and also just want to share that global learning, my new job, that also provide a specific perspective and real eye-opening experience for students. So many of the schools also offer global learning program, global exchange program for students to creating more opportunities for them to go to those countries to
Mm.
embed it in their language and culture even just for 2 weeks or for the summer, or we even offer
Yeah.
a semester program for
Well,
students
and
in
I'm thinking
school.
of the parallel for the
Mm,
adult learners, for the teachers, right? Can we as an
mm,
industry have teachers, experiencing different cultures as part of their role as faculty and, encouraging language development among teachers too, because we have so many monolingual teachers in the international school environment, as you said.
mm.
So yeah. Okay. Thank you so much,
Thank
John. This
you.
is
Thanks.
this just
Thanks,
this is
Madeline.
magnificent. Yeah.
We have one more question. I think we have time for one more question. Teresa asked, how did you document the differences and similarities between the two sites? And did your analysis, is it capturing tensions in implementation? Some of the differences and the tensions that surfaced in implementation.
Uh, the difference and similarity between the two sites. What might be
Maybe
those two sites you were referring to, Teresa?
The
Oh,
ones
you
that
mean those
you
schools?
Yeah, the schools.
Oh, the schools I refer to?
Yes.
Oh, sure. Right. I would love to talk about that. Very different and similar in some of the ways. So particularly, I talked about the school. One is in Singapore and one is in Beijing. And again, the demographic is very different. And the program model is different. One school is a one teacher model. So it's a one teacher teach in two different languages. For example, in the morning, I teach in Chinese. In the afternoon, I teach in English. So that's a one teacher model. There are some pros and cons. And the other school, it's a two teacher co-teaching model. So 50-50. Alternate day switch. Day one, I'm with my Chinese speaking teacher and learning everything in Chinese. And day two, I'm going to my English speaking teacher as my homeroom teacher and learning all the content in English. Then alternate day switch. So, and in terms of, so those are some of the differences. Capturing tensions in implementation. Yes, it's all about tension. You are right on. So I would tell you one thing is implementing a dual language program in an existing monolingual English medium school. One of the participants shared that I want to quote is, it's like testing every single existing system and structure of that school because the dual language program is challenging and testing the existing system and structure of that school because all of a sudden everything is different. The curriculum is different now. It's not just the one language. So how do we allocate which part is taught in Chinese, which part is taught in English? The assessment is different now. It's no longer monolingual English assessment because we have to assess students' general language performance and the linguistic specific performance now. And that's a more, by the way, that is a more equitable way to assess the content learning rather than punishing them because they don't have enough English, right? So assessment now looks differently. And again, teaching looks differently. Leadership looks differently. Reporting system looks differently. So everything looks differently. And there is tension all the time. Thank you for mentioning that and navigating that tension, mediating that tension. So that is what I call to include the program into the existing system structure is not enough. It's more about integrated that into the system and structure. So it's not a second thought. So whenever you make a decision, the dual language program is not a second thought. It's in part of your decision making.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
that question.
I appreciate the question also, and I think we need to stop there. But I want to say thank you, Dr. Chu, for sharing with us your research, your insights, for answering questions, your passion for dual language education, especially because you wear multiple hats as a practitioner, researcher, leader, and because it's so late in Beijing right now. So thank you again. I think everyone appreciates you sharing with us.
Thank you so much, everyone.
And I would like to just remind you that this is a speaker series. And so we had a chance to hear from Dr. Chu today, and we would love for you to join us and to share with your colleagues that our next speaker will be Manuel Vasquez Cano from mixed method researcher at Education Northwest. And he'll be speaking about his research on the impact of dual language immersion in high school outcomes. And so you're welcome to join us. If you're on a mailing list, you'll get an email, or you're welcome to register or scan with the phone. You'll receive a link to the recording for this session. And so you'll have this information forwarded to you as well. Thank you from wherever you're joining us around the world. And thank you again, Dr. Chu. Have a good night, good afternoon, or good day.